Good morning, this is Mrs. Rancourt. I'm going to go ahead and start recording the chapters along with our questions for reflection and our double entry journals for part 6 of our novella. This will be vignettes 37 all the way to the end. Just so that you know, part 6 can bring up some sensitive topics, and there are some things in here that can stir up some emotions. If at any time you need to talk with me one-on-one outside of my office hours, you can always reach out via Remind or Edsby if we need to have a private conversation about some of the things you will read in these vignettes. So let's start with vignette number 37, What Sally Said. He never hits me hard. She said her mama rubs lard on all the places where it hurts. Then at school, she'd say she fell. That's where all the blue places come from. That's why her skin is always scarred. But who believes her? A girl that big? A girl who comes in with her pretty face all beaten and black can't be falling off the stairs. He never hits me hard. But Sally doesn't tell about that time he hit her with his hands just like a dog, she said. Like if I was an animal. He thinks I'm going to run away like his sisters who made the family ashamed, just because I'm a daughter. And then she doesn't say. Sally was going to get permission to stay with us a little, and one Thursday she came finally with a sack full of clothes and a paper bag of sweet bread her mama sent. And would have stayed too, except when the dark came, her father, whose eyes were little from crying, knocked on the door and said, "Please come back. This is the last time." And she said, "Daddy," and went home. Then we didn't need to worry, until one day, Sally's father catches her talking to a boy, and the next day, she doesn't come to school. And the next. Until, the way Sally tells it, he just went crazy. He just forgot he was her father between the buckle and the belt. "You're not my daughter. You're not my daughter." And then he broke into his hands. So make sure when you are creating your notes for this vignette that you're not forgetting to include the vignette number, the vignette title, the setting of this chapter, the characters involved, the plot summary, and then you're going to go ahead and make a connection, whether that's a text-to-text connection, a text-to-world connection, or a text-to-self connection. I've gone ahead and made a template for this in case you want to use that or need a reminder of what to include in your reading response notes. You can find this template on Edsby. You can also find it in the Google Drive that I'm sharing with this class. So here are your 3 reflection questions for vignette number 37. Number 1. What does Sally say about her father? And what does Esperanza know? Number 2. What does Sally's father fear? Number 3. How do you think Esperanza feels about the situation? Why do you think that? Make sure when you are answering these reflection questions that you are doing so in complete sentences. An example of that would be, for number 1, Sally says blank about her father. Esperanza knows blank about Sally's father. When answering these questions, please include text evidence when it is appropriate. You'll want to go ahead and pause this video now before moving on to the double entry journal. So the double entry journal prompt for vignette 37 reads as follows. Why aren't Sally's mother, teachers, and friends helping her? What should they do? Remember, you are including a T-chart here, where the left side will be evidence from the text to support your commentary, which is on the right side. There is a template of what a double entry journal looks like on our Edsby page. You can also find it on our Google Drive shared with this class. I would go ahead and pause this video now before I go forward reading vignette number 38. Vignette 38 is called The Monkey Garden. The monkey doesn't live there anymore. The monkey moved to Kentucky and took his people with him. And I was glad because I couldn't listen anymore to his wild screaming at night, that twangy yakety yak of the people who owned him. The green metal cage, the porcelain tabletop, The family that spoke like guitars. Monkey, family, table, all gone. And it was then we took over the garden we had been afraid to go into when the monkey screamed and showed his yellow teeth. There were sunflowers big as flowers on Mars, and thick coxcomb bleeding the deep red fringe of theater curtains. There were dizzy bees and bow-tied fruit flies turning somersaults and humming in the sweet air. Sweet, sweet peach trees, thorn roses and thistle and pears, weeds like so many squinty-eyed stars, and brush that made your ankles itch until you washed with soap and water. There were big green apples hard as knees, and everywhere the sleepy smell of rotting wood, damp earth, and dusty hollyhocks thick and perfumy like the blue-blonde hair of the dead. Notice how much imagery Sandra Cisneros is using here to help us imagine in our heads what this garden looks like. Yellow spiders ran when we turned rocks over, and pale worms, blind and afraid of light, rolled over in their sleep. Poke a stick in the sandy soil, and a few blue-skinned beetles would appear, an avenue of ants, so many crusty ladybugs. This was a garden, a wonderful thing to look at in the spring. But bit by bit, after the monkey left, the garden began to take over itself. Flowers stopped obeying the little bricks that kept them from growing beyond their paths. Weeds mixed in. Dead cars appeared overnight like mushrooms. First one, and then another, and then a pale blue pickup with the front windshield missing. Before you knew it, the monkey garden became filled with sleepy cars. So notice after this family has moved away and gone to Kentucky and taken their pet with them, there's no one to care for the garden anymore. Nobody to pull the weeds, nobody to trim the hedges, no one to take care of these flowers. So instead, the community, the neighbors, are using it kind of like a landfill. They're parking old beat up cars there, and they're allowing the garden to kind of overgrow instead of keeping it clean and pretty. Things had a way of disappearing in the garden, as if the garden itself ate them, or if, with its old man memory, it put them away and forgot them. Ninny found $1 and a dead mouse between two rocks in the stone wall where the morning glories climbed. And once, when we were playing hide and seek, Eddie Vargas laid his head beneath a hibiscus tree and fell asleep there like a Rip Van Winkle until somebody remembered he was in the game and went back to look for him. This, I suppose, was the reason why we went there, far away from where our mothers could find us. We and a few old dogs who lived inside the empty cars. We made a clubhouse once on the back of that old blue pickup. And besides, we liked to jump from the roof of one car to another and pretend they were giant mushrooms. Somebody started the lie that the monkey garden had been there before anything. We like to think the garden could hide things for 1,000 years. There beneath the roots of soggy flowers were the bones of murdered pirates and dinosaurs, the eyes of a unicorn turned to coal. This is where I wanted to die, and where I tried one day, but not even the monkey garden would have me. It was the last day I would go there. Who was it that said I was getting too old to play the games? Who was it I didn't listen to? I only remember that when the others ran, I wanted to run too, up and down and through the monkey garden, fast as the boys. Not like Sally, who screamed if she got her stockings muddy. I said, "Sally, come on!" But she wouldn't. She stayed by the curb talking to Tito and his friends. "Play with the kids if you want," she said. "I'm staying here." She could be stuck up like that if she wanted to. So I just left. It was her own fault, too. When I got back, Sally was pretending to be mad. Something about the boys having stolen her keys. "Please give them back to me," she said, punching the nearest one with a soft fist. They were laughing. She was too. It was a joke I didn't get. I wanted to go back with the other kids who were still jumping on cars, still chasing each other through the garden, but Sally had her own game. One of the boys invented the rules. One of Tito's friends said, "You can't get the keys back unless you kiss us." And Sally pretended to be mad at first, but then she said, "Yes." It was that simple. I don't know why, but something inside me wanted to throw a stick. Something wanted to say no when I watched Sally going into the garden with Tito's buddies all grinning. It was just a kiss, that's all. A kiss for each one. So what? She said. Only, how come I felt angry inside? Like something wasn't right. Sally went behind that old blue pickup to kiss the boys and get her keys back, and I ran up 3 flights of stairs to where Tito lived. His mother was ironing shirts. She was sprinkling water on them from an empty pop bottle and smoking a cigarette. "Your son and his friend stole Sally's keys, and now they won't give them back unless she kisses them, and right now they're making her kiss them," I said, all out of breath from the 3 flights of stairs. "Those kids," she said, not looking up from her ironing. "That's all?" "What do you want me to do?" she said. "Call the cops?" And she kept on ironing. I looked at her a long time, but couldn't think of anything to say, and ran back down the 3 flights to the garden where Sally needed to be saved. I took 3 big sticks and a brick and figured this was enough. But when I got there, Sally said, "Go home." Those boys said, "Leave us alone." I felt stupid with my brick. They all looked at me as if I was the one that was crazy. It made me feel ashamed. And then, I don't know why, but I had to run away. I had to hide myself at the other end of the garden, in the jungle part, under a tree that wouldn't mind if I lay down and cried a long time. I closed my eyes like tight stars so that I wouldn't, but I did. My face felt hot. Everything inside hiccuped. I read somewhere in India there are priests who can will their heart to stop beating. I wanted to will my blood to stop, my heart to quit its pumping. I wanted to be dead, to turn into the rain, my eyes melt into the ground like 2 black snails. I wished and wished. I closed my eyes and willed it. But when I got up, my dress was green and I had a headache. I looked at my feet in their white socks and ugly round shoes. They seemed far away. They didn't seem to be my feet anymore. And the garden that had been such a good place to play didn't seem mine either. So for Vignette 38, we have 4 reflection questions for you. Number 1, how does the monkey garden change over time? Number 2, what game do the kids play there? And what game does Sally play there? Number 3, how does Esperanza try to help Sally? Does she succeed? Number 4, why does Esperanza never return to the monkey garden? Again, make sure you are answering these in complete sentences and using evidence from the vignette when appropriate. You'll want to go ahead and pause this video now before moving on to the double entry journal. So make sure you are using your T-chart for this. Your double entry journal for Vignette 38 says, do you think Esperanza is right to get involved and try to protect Sally? Would you do the same? Explain your reasoning. That concludes the end of this video. If you need any help with this, make sure you're reaching out to us and asking questions that pertain to Vignettes 37 and 38.